Hello and welcome to the morning after show. My name is Joshua Reimer, and I'm happy to be back in this seat talking to you guys on the morning after show. I am joined by none other than Jared Block. Jared, how you doing? And how was Wednesday and Thursday without me?
Yeah, both days. It's definitely the first time we've done this, so felt lonely for the last 48 hours, but we're back. We're
Yep.
here. And yeah, it was a very interesting night to say the least last night. But I guess more of an interesting morning than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't around at all yesterday, so I was gonna play it off like I knew what you were talking about. At least when it came to the interesting morning, I have no clue. All I know is there was a lot of Dolphins trade rumors. Now we're getting more of this Ben Simmons stuff in. We'll talk about the Ben Simmons stuff before we get into anything else. But I got to know what you're talking about when it comes to an interesting morning and an interesting afternoon and all that.
Well, I mean, yesterday was just crazy because the football game featured like literally nobody that was starting. And
Yep.
then Jarvis Landry, we'll talk about him. He came back in, then he got hurt again. So we'll talk about that.
Poor
But
Jarvis.
between that and the three-game basketball slate that had like 20% of the slate that was out already before the slate even started, I don't know, it just feels like injuries are in full swing and we're not even like the football season's 1/3 in, the basketball season's 2 days in. So it's always fun.
Yeah, your Bucks are kind of going through it. I was doing my
Yep.
research yesterday. I was going through my process because, like I've told you, and like I've told a lot of the members, a little bit of a new process coming into this season. So like trying to get a hold of it, trying to get a grasp of it, doing it even on my days off. That way, so I can make a routine for myself. And I was just going through the Bucks, and I was like, "Holy crap! There's no one here. They're all gone." So like it was really fun to see that you guys are dealing, well, not a lot of fun, but it was sad to see that you guys are dealing with a lot of injuries. Sad to see what resulted in that Miami game, but we'll get to that when we talk about the NBA. Hockey fan says good morning. Good morning, how are you doing? Desert Zombie says woo, Friday. Yes, it is Friday. Bacon 23 says good morning. Emil says what's up, fellas? What is going on? All right, I want to talk about this stuff that we just got from Woj, and we just got it from Shams. Lots and lots of Ben Simmons stuff coming out. First, let's start with Shams because he was the first on the scene. He was the first to get it. His sources say that Ben Simmons spoke to Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid, and the entire 76ers team today and accepted everyone needs to take responsibility, including himself. But Simmons informed them all he's not mentally ready to play yet and he needs time. I mean, step in the right direction, step in the wrong direction. Are we still stuck in the middle? Like, what are you thinking with this type of quote?
Yeah, I don't really know how caught up you are to this whole saga yet. I also don't want to get canceled for saying the wrong thing.
Uh
So
oh.
I'll just making sure that everybody says correctly what's going on. You didn't say anything wrong. This is obviously a very touchy subject in terms of the mental health area of things.
Yeah.
So yesterday, Ben Simmons basically said that his back hurt and that the Sixers staff in between Wednesday night and Thursday checked them all out. All the medical professionals on the Sixers cleared him. Daryl Morey then came out and said, "You know what? Like Ben, if you're going to tell us you have a back injury, we're also just going to tell you that if you get hurt, we're not going to pay you." So, or something
Whoa.
along those lines. Like he's basically Ben Simmons was trying to use a back injury to get paid and not play for the team to stay away from them right now, as some things just get figured out. But then Morey comes out, who doesn't come out very often and make statements, but he came out and said that this thing could last for years if you wanted it to. But right now, we're just going to take it day by day, and you're technically cleared to play, so we're not going to pay you right now. And that's basically where that went. So then I'm guessing the next step of all this is that Ben Simmons goes and meets with medical professionals about mentally being ready to play or not. And that's now his new focus of area. I'm not saying that I don't know what he's feeling right now, but that's the steps that are leading to this. So one could say that he's diverting to another angle to try to not play for the team. Also, on the other side of it, you could say maybe he's gone through so much that he doesn't like he's not ready, actually ready. So I don't know. You can take it either way. I'm just saying we're going to see a lot of drama because of this statement about mental health and the world we live in right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of insane. So, next thing that came out from Woj was that Ben Simmons met with Sixers medical professionals and Coach Doc Rivers today and informed them that he's not mentally ready to play to his expectations now. Sources tell ESPN he also talked to his teammates today. Simmons has to be evaluated now, and next steps will be based on the determination of medical professionals. So, like, I don't know what they mean. Like, that was from Woj. It's the direct quote or the direct tweet. Don't know what that means. Like upon or evaluated now, and next steps will be upon the determination of medical professionals. Like, is that in reference to his back? Is that in reference to the mental health
Sure.
that he's talking about? Like, who knows what he's talking about right now? But like, it's a lot, man. And I think I kind of agree with QDZ too. Like, this should have been what you led off with. QDZ in
Sure.
the chat said he should have said this from the jump. It's okay. We all need help sometimes. Completely agree. Like, everyone goes through mental health bouts at some point in their life. If this is the time that Ben Simmons is going through his, I mean, I would be like he is like one of the worst like fan bases in all of recent memory.
Yeah.
Like you
Yep.
have like I go back to something that we found funny, but like imagine putting yourself in his shoes of seeing
Josh, I gotta
the
jump out for a second.
oh, okay. No, you're fine. I'll talk to the people. Imagine being in like Ben Simmons' shoes when we saw that newscast thing. I don't know if you guys remember. We showed it on the stream. We were all laughing and had a good time. It was like these newscasters who was like, and now just seeing Ben Simmons walking out of Philadelphia, and it was this huge trash can floating in a river like out of Philadelphia. So like, yeah, that's hilarious to us. But imagine seeing that. Like, his home fans are saying that about him. I'm sure it's gotta hurt. I'm sure it does affect mental illness or your mental health. And I just hope he gets better, man. Like, the game is better with Ben Simmons, without a doubt. It doesn't matter what you want to say about him. Doesn't matter how much fun you want to make that he can't have a jumper. The NBA is better when everyone is healthy, and that's always true. McCurdle said good morning. Good morning, fam. How are you doing? Brian also says good morning. How are you doing? Yeah, this whole beginning talk was supposed to be all about Ben Simmons. And Jared, I'm glad you're back. I'm hoping that it wasn't anything to do with Keith, but I imagine it probably
No,
was. Oh, it wasn't. Okay, good.
no, no, no.
Well, glad you're back anyway. Any other comments that you have about the whole Ben Simmons situation?
Sorry, yeah, we have major construction outside the house. I did this yesterday to Sean too. Water was shut off the entire day yesterday
Oh
for some
no.
stupid Wisconsin construction. So just had to test a few things and make sure we're all good because people were hammering on the door. So no, we're all good. I'm out of breath, but
Yeah, you probably
we're
ran. You probably sprinted.
yeah, yeah. No, we're good. It's just interesting that all of this is kind of circling in on the same thing of like I don't know. There's just so much drama, and they play the Nets tonight. Like, come on, like how many more things that can happen that go wrong? No matter what, no matter what, if Simmons plays or not, we saw it. If you watched the New Orleans game, if anybody in the chat watched that game, every single time that these Sixers shot free throws, they were chanting, "Where's Ben Simmons?" So it's going to be a
Oh
thing where
no.
it's going to be an entire season until something happens, and then even when it happens, people are going to make fun of that for some reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. It certainly is interesting. Anything else you want to talk about in referring? Well, actually, we're not gonna have a chance. We don't talk about NFL at all in this show today. Sadly, it's Friday. There's nothing really going on. But do you want to talk about those trade rumors? Because I saw them and I was like, as a Deshaun Watson owner in a dynasty league, I
Oh,
started
sure.
to get
Okay.
really happy. I was a fan.
Yeah.
I was like, this is gonna be awesome. Like, I cannot wait. And seems like they have sizzled down quite a bit. I saw sources saying the rumors just weren't true at all. But like, what are your thoughts if this does happen? If Watson got sent to Miami and then you saw Tua get sent to the Washington football team, like, what are your thoughts on that at least?
Well, I thought as of yesterday that things were definitely heating up. Honestly, I think that this is all smoke, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Sean even dropped Watson in his fantasy league finally.
No.
He picked up Case Keenum yesterday, excuse me.
No.
Uh, and anyway, that's a long story, but basically, I was telling him that there was things were picking up steam for the first time in several weeks, and that they were going to make a three-team trade. We heard that. We also heard the Panthers weren't interested. We heard that Tua might go to Washington because of this. Lots of picks involved, but a report came out about 15 minutes ago during a press conference with Brian Flores from Miami, and he says, "quote Tua is our quarterback. I'm happy with our quarterback." End quote. So I don't think that this is fire anymore. I think it's all smoke.
Yeah, I would agree that it's probably all smoke. Not probably, it is all smoke. Like it doesn't happen most likely, but it's fun to think about. It's fun to conceptualize. It's fun to, have an idea of what would happen. Like two out of the Washington football team. I'm just wondering, like, why is that pulled out of left field? Like, how does that trade work? You imagine that the Washington football team must have to send like a major defensive piece over to someone, whether it be the Texans or whether it be the Dolphins. It would just be interesting to see who that person was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really believe anything that anybody says anymore when it comes to
Don't
any of
blame
this
you.
stuff.
Yeah, don't
So,
blame you.
uh, yeah, Jalen Waddle said no one on the team is distracted by Deshaun Watson rumors. Everyone's just focused on playing the game and winning. They won like one game, I think. So I guess that they have other things to worry about
Yeah.
than that. Um, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, you're not. Yeah, Tua just came back. I don't feel like you've given him necessarily enough time to prove himself. So we'll see. I think that I don't think that anything happens this year still. So I don't think anybody wants to touch him until the legality of this is taken care of. And I think it's still sort of a bad look for the NFL to let this go through if it were to go through. So I think that there's a lot of hoops that this has to take before it gets there. Because honestly, I don't want to compare these things because they're like oranges and apples, but things acted really, really fast on the John Gruden front. And it kind of just feels like this thing has just been sitting here for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. That usually things happen fast in the NFL, and if not happen fast, then there's probably something else going on behind the scenes. So most
Yep.
likely nothing on the Deshaun Watson front, and we'll just have to see what happens there. The other trade rumors that we got was that Mac is getting or the Colts are getting calls about Marlon Mack finally. Like we saw
Yeah.
calls from the 49ers. We saw calls from the Chiefs. We saw calls from other teams as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. So, do you want to just talk a little bit about that? Do you think maybe this is the week that he gets traded?
Yep. I see a few things. The Chiefs, I think the Saints are interested. Uh, yeah. I mean, I think he goes somewhere. Um, for Jonathan Taylor's sake, hope he goes somewhere. But I don't think it's going to be this week. I do think it's going to be soon, and I would like to see when the Colts bye week is. So I'm going to look at that, um, because I think that will happen. If it's next week or if it's like the week after, I think there's a really good chance that it's going to happen. Looks like the bye week is week 14, so I rescind my statement. It's a
Yeah,
long time to wait.
it is a while to wait. And I mean, the trade deadline's November 2nd. So, like, that's why if you're seeing these trade rumors heat up, that's the reason why these trade rumors are heating up. It's because we're, what, like 10 days out from it being the trade
Yeah.
deadline or somewhere around
Yep.
there. So, uh, if you're seeing that more and more, that's the reason why, and it's something to keep an eye out for. NFL trade deadline is not nearly as exciting as NBA or MLB, but sometimes, just sometimes, you get those little spicy nuggets in there that are fun to break down. Um, what else? I had one more thing to say. Oh, you said for Jonathan Taylor's sake. Naeem Hines' sake, man. Who cares? Jonathan
Yeah.
Taylor's doing his thing. He's fine.
Yeah.
Naeem Hines is the guy who got paid in the offseason and is now isn't even getting more than 5 carries a game or 5 touches a game. Like
That's
Naeem
true.
Hines is the one that needs to work, not Jonathan Taylor. Anyway, that's besides the point. I'm also a little bit biased just because I have so much Naeem Hines everywhere in fantasy that I need him to do well. Anyway, okay. Let's talk about the disgusting thing that was Thursday Night Football. I didn't get to watch much of the game because I didn't want to watch much of the game, and I didn't need to watch much of the game. So I'm sure I'll have to go watch it back on tape just to make sure to get my film study in. But I want to hear your thoughts. What happened on Thursday Night Football? Was it at least an interesting game, even with all these bums in there?
You missed nothing.
Great.
The one thing that you did miss was the Dearness Johnson show, which was
Yeah.
actually pretty cool to see. 22 carries, 146 rushing yards, 22 receiving yards, a touchdown. He also sealed the game in the fourth quarter by scoring a first down after the team just got a penalty and he had converted, which would have sealed the game. So like he had to do it twice. He had to win the game twice for them, and he did it. And it was just really cool to see. And now all this stuff it's kind of like a little bit too late kind of thing. But it's like he was basically, if you guys don't know his story, he played for the University of South Florida. After he finished college, he went to New Orleans training camp where he did not make the team the next year. He then spent the next several years as a fisherman in Florida for several years and still trying out for camps, just not making the team, not making the team. And then he comes to the Browns, and then both running backs go down. He steps in. He has a career day in his first NFL career start, and there's screenshots of him in his DMs. I'm not sure if he leaked them or not, but he messaged every single AAF team for a tryout in 2018 after he got cut. And there's just like DMs of everything here. It's pretty cool to see where it was now versus where it is today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's awesome for him. I think you can safely. I don't know if it's like a scheme thing, kind of similar to what San Fran does, or like what it is, but like I think
It
you
is.
could safely, still think you can safely call this running back room the best running back room in all of football right now.
Yep. He also, so yes, the scheme was definitely a thing. They do it very well. And also, I just have to give credit where credit's due for Johnson because he, according to Next Gen stats, he had plus 53 rushing yards over his expectation. Now, on apparently, he outgained his expectation on 15 of 22 carries, which is over 70% of his touches, which is the second highest rate in a game since 2018.
Wow, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. But good to see, good to see that he's doing well. What did you think about the rookie on the other side? I saw Javante scored a touchdown. I'm now seeing, looking at the box score, that Javante had a lot of catches yesterday. It looked more like a change of pace back and out yarded or Melvin Gordon when it came to rushing yards as well. So, like, I don't know. How close is Javante to taking this job?
They basically played Melvin Gordon in the first half and Javante in the second half. The game was close in the first half. Melvin Gordon scored the receiving touchdown in the second quarter. And then basically from there, they had to play catch up because the Browns got the ball back and were able to do some damage with it. So Javante, change of pace back. He's going to be the guy. And he normally wasn't the guy in the 2 minute scenarios. So that was interesting to see him get as much work as he did late in the game because normally it was going 50-50 split. So I guess I don't know. We still have to kind of monitor this. I think that people are still going to give um, they're still going to give Melvin Gordon the ball. It's just it was good to see. It was his first receiving touchdown ever. So Dearness Johnson's not a rookie, but it was cool to see two guys that normally aren't seeing success see success yesterday.
For sure. Definitely true. All right. You're seeing another game of this Browns team. We saw last week that they just weren't very good against the Cardinals, but we see them pull out a win against the Broncos. Where are you landing on this Browns team? Because I feel like that's been the talk of the week leading up to Thursday Night Football. Like, is this team a division winner? Is this team a wild card team? Is this team out of the playoffs at the end of the year? Like, what do you think ends up the result of this Browns team season?
So the Browns right now they have a firm hold on the third place in the AFC North, which is crazy at 4-3. Just kind of gives shows you how tough that division is. You can arguably say it's the third best division in football, behind the NFC West and I would say the AFC West still has a stronghold on that for now. That could change, however, in the next couple of weeks. Uh, the Ravens 5-1, the Bengals 4-2. They face off against each other this week, so there's a good chance that the Browns could take over the Bengals. So far, I mean, it's too early to tell what's going to happen, but I do think that one thing's for sure, and we could see one of these teams be in the playoff contention, whether it be Bengals, Browns, or Steelers, because honestly, all of them are in play still.
Yep, for sure. All right. Interesting to see what's going to happen with that Browns team because I think that Browns team is kind of mystery, kind of a conundrum right now, and we're going to see if they can get things back on track. All right, let's talk about the NBA whoops, we're not talking about the NBA yet. We're talking about MLB first, Jared. Round the bases. Talk about the Dodgers and Chris Taylor's amazing night last night.
Oh, I don't really want to talk about this segment,
I
but
know. I knew you wouldn't, but I figured we had to.
yeah, I didn't watch this game. I just watched the replay and saw some of the highlights from last night. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny, and I know that they don't work for the same company. But I made a joke yesterday that I was like, So Joe and Troy really got to call the Browns and Broncos game with nobody playing in it instead of this Dodgers Braves NLCS matchup. Felt kind of funny and kind of weird, but yeah, Chris Taylor. Obviously, this is his career night. It's probably the best night of his career, and it could be the reason that the Dodgers go to the World Series. This is definitely the game that they needed to win, and if they would have, obviously, it's an elimination game, so they were going to step up anyway. But I really thought that things were going to be over when Freddie Freeman hit the two-run home run in the first inning, Josh.
All right. So yeah, we had the same exact sentiment because I saw Freddie hit that 2-run homer and I was like, Braves to the World Series, baby. Let's go. Like it's not the Dodgers. Thank goodness. We're good to go. Let's see the Braves do some damage in the World Series. And yeah, everything went downhill after that first inning home run by Freddie Freeman. We saw that, like you said, Chris Taylor had a career night. 3 home runs, had also another single with an RBI. So like dude was just on fire last night. Then you had Pollock who hit a home run. You had Pollock who hit 2 home runs actually. The
Yep.
It was more about like what surprises me is that like I figure with this Dodgers team when the star players don't show up, you're probably not going to have a win. But I mean the star players kind of showed up, but it was more just Taylor powering them towards a win, right? Like without his 3 home runs, they still get the win because they have Pollock having 2 home runs,
Yep.
but they don't do much damage. So like I don't know. It's just interesting to see Taylor and Pollock kind of help this team push them along that way so they can go back home and they can play out game 6 and 7. What do you think the Braves' chances are now that they're going back into LA and they have 2 games to clinch now?
Yeah, I don't know the percentages of this, but when they had Max Fried on the mound yesterday, and that Sean and I both agreed was one of their best options because their best option because they couldn't go Morton. So this kind of feels to me like this thing is going 7, and they're going to have to bring Morton back to make this happen.
Yeah, hopefully he is good for game 7. It's going to be interesting to see what his status is for that game. All right, want to talk really quickly and preview the Red Sox and the Astros who play today. We haven't had a chance to talk about the Astros since they've taken a 3-2 lead in this series. What are your thoughts here? I mean, we kind of were I was hoping that the Red Sox would win this one. I don't know, 3-2. Now you're in Minute Maid. Like probably not looking too bright for the Red Sox hopes of getting to the World Series.
Yep, BetOnline thinks this one's still going to be really close. We know that Eovaldi's already starting for the Red Sox. I don't know if Garcia is necessarily the confirmed pitcher because they didn't have that up last night. So if they made that decision, I would be a little bit scared of how that went because it didn't work out for them last time. Maybe they go full bullpen in this one, and we see Garcia go like 2 innings. That's kind of what I'm seeing because the money line looks to be -110 for the Houston Astros.
Yeah, this game might be close, but the series odds have completely flipped the other
Yeah,
way. I think we
they
said
have.
something about betting. Well, no, we said that about the Dodgers. Astros series price -375, Red Sox +305. That's not too pretty. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens come game 6 and game 7. But it looks more and more like it's going to play out to a game 7, like we both predicted when this series first kicked off. All right. Anything else MLB wise? I mean, like these 2 games are great, or these 2 series are great. There's not much else going on though. So if there's nothing else, then we can talk a little bit about the NBA.
Yeah, the last thing I was gonna say about the Dodgers is that like their 5 through 8 hitters went off last night, and I was trying to think about how to word this in my head yesterday, but didn't have time to, as we were just, Sean wanted to talk about the Astros on the
Of
NBA
course.
podcast as usual. So I was trying to find a way to say like how many Dodgers batters that normally play, like the day-to-day starters, how many of those guys would be the best team on an MLB team somewhere else? And I think
Mm,
the answer is like 6. So.
yeah. I mean, Turner, Mookie, Turner. Turner's not the other. Justin Turner isn't playing right now, but Justin Turner, Max Muncy. Who am I forgetting here? I know I'm missing someone. That's 4. I
I
don't
mean,
know
you
if
could say it, not this year, but Bellinger's in the conversation.
Bellinger's in the conversation. You're right.
Pollock was
Um,
the best batter on Arizona when he
yeah,
left.
that's a good point. Will Smith, kinda like I don't know if he's the best batter, but he's at least in the top 3 of hitters on most every
Yeah.
lineup. So
I
Yeah,
mean,
very
that's
interesting.
that's probably the question we should just restructure and say top 3 player
Oh,
on
I mean,
every
I think
single
it's
team.
everyone, right? Like, I think almost
Yeah,
everyone falls into that category, outside of maybe the guys at the bottom of the lineup. But like,
yeah.
almost everyone is going to be a top 3 player on a team if you move them over somewhere else. Else, Mills said there's a rumor the Browns may try to get Garoppolo. At least that's the rumor here in Cleveland.
Uh,
I want to talk about it because I saw my
I
quarterback's
how
name. Yeah,
how are they going to
how
how?
how does that happen? Like, what does the trade look like? I don't know.
Well,
It's
I
gonna
just don't
be
know how that happens because Trey Lance is hurt. He's probably not even going to start this week.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So maybe but who knows what's going to happen in that regard. Anyway, let's move on. Talk about the NBA. Before we talk about the NBA, there's a little video that Jared wanted us to watch that I found effing hilarious. So let me get it all set up here for you guys, and let's go over to the video recap screen. And now we are here. You see Paul George here, and just take a listen in here.
Make it interesting. Let me get one. I give you one, you give me one. I'm from the logo with it.
A few moments later.
Green is in a torture chamber, and outside it goes Curry. Three!
I give you one, you give me one. Boom. 3-pointer from nearly the logo. You said something to the effect of that needs to be played at Curry's Hall of Fame induction, and I would tend to agree with that. A crazy night of NBA for sure. NBA's back in full swing, especially with the 2 blowouts that we saw. But we also had a really good
Yeah.
game in the Clippers and the Warriors. Talk about this game first. Like, you saw the Warriors end up beating the Lakers. You're seeing them beat the Clippers. What do you think about this Warriors team so far?
Yeah, so I mean, the Warriors have now won huge games back to back against both LA teams. I still think it's a little bit too early to really, I don't know. The Lakers were trying to figure things out with their guys. The Clippers were trying to survive without half of their front court. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that you still have to give them a ton of credit. They won both games, so win's a win. But I think that Golden State I wouldn't say is fully back all the way, but I still think that they're a top 5 team in the West. And yeah, I mean, all credit to Curry. He came back after a very, very poor shooting performance and just shot the absolute lights out against the Clippers.
Yeah, I saw something to the effect that he went 9 for 9 in the first quarter. Like, I
Yep.
mean, some
Yep.
nights it's on, some nights it's off. I think Wednesday night or Tuesday night it was off, and Thursday night it was clearly on. So good for him. Good to see that he had that good of a game against this Clippers team. I honestly thought, like, I'm surprised that the Clippers stayed in it. In all honesty, like,
Oh, me too.
I don't know how good
Yeah.
this Clippers team is going to be this year without Kawhi. They're not going to have him. I think almost all of the regular season, but like, I don't know. Maybe this team is going to be a little bit better than I thought they were. It's definitely going to be interesting to keep up with and see if they are going to be better than we thought they were, because it just shows that how loaded the West is. That this team is good too.
Right.
Like, if this team is even halfway solid, I think it just shows how loaded the West is. Let's talk about the East, though. Let's talk about the Hawks as they faced off against the Mavericks. Hawks won 113-87. I don't know how much of this game you actually ended up watching, but I am curious. What did you think happened in this game to lead the Hawks towards this absolute rout?
Yeah. The Hawks, that kind of surprised me a little bit. I guess the one thing that I will say, even though this kind of contradicts what I said yesterday, was that, I said Dallas was as healthy as they were ever going to be, which was true. But the Hawks, I mean, despite having a minutes limit on Capella, having Okongwu and Gallinari out, they seem to be the deeper team and maybe just the more well-rounded and more talented team. And maybe we're just seeing, people called this Atlanta team a little bit of a fluke when they got as far as they did in the postseason. Maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe they're actually taking that next step. And the one thing that surprised me the most was that this team does not need Trae Young to win, or at least to ball out to win every single night. They can have other pieces step up, and you saw that last night with Herter. You saw that last night with a bunch of other guys on the team, and they are, at least in comparison to Dallas, much deeper than them in terms of the quality of their depth. And that's kind of what I'm expected to see moving forward here. They're going to have a really easy schedule the next week, but I do think that they will eventually have to start battling teams like the Sixers, the Nets, the Jazz in the beginning of November.
Yeah, I think the number one thing you can take away from this game is the fact that you had 4 players score in double digits for the Mavericks. You had 6 players score in double digits for the Hawks. So
Yep,
just
hard to
really
do.
spread out. Yeah, you see everyone in the starting 5 scored 10 or more, and then you also had Cam Reddish who scored the most off the bench with 21 minutes. Like Cam Reddish, I've always believed in Cam Reddish. Hashtag Duke in the NBA. He is a Duke player. Got the hat on for it. He's an absolute beast. And I don't know if you've seen this clip, but there's a clip of Anthony Edwards in high school. And it's his buddies asking him, like, who's the toughest player you ever faced off against? Who was the guy that was hardest to defend? And he takes a second and he's like, man, you know who it is? Cam Reddish. Because I don't know, at some point their paths must have crossed and you must have played against Cam Reddish. And Cam Reddish is a walking bucket, man. I love Cam Reddish. He's like one of my favorite favorite young players in the league that no one talks about. So I'm excited to see what he can do, especially if he's going to have this role every night where he's going to be able to take double-digit shots off the bench. This is someone that I feel like if the Hawks are good enough, he could end up competing for sixth man of the year. I mean, with these types of performances, I feel like you could definitely see that. So good to see Cam Reddish do well. Good to see DeAndre Hunter fully healthy. Sean and I talked about Hunter a ton last year, saying that like he's almost the equivalent to a young Kawhi Leonard, a lanky defender who is, has a good jump shot, has that good mid-range shot. I really like DeAndre Hunter. I played him last night in fantasy, so like I was happy to see him have a good game. Also played Collins in fantasy. Was happy to see that he didn't get into foul trouble early, and he looked really good
Yeah,
throughout the game.
seriously.
He also just dominates the Mavs. Like I don't know if you guys brought this up on the podcast yesterday, but like the last 3 games against the Mavericks, he's had 50 or more FanDuel points. So like felt like seeing Collins at that 6,000 price tag. It was like lock and load, baby. And yeah, I just think like at the end of the day, it comes to the Hawks were deep and Dallas is not deep whatsoever when you look at this bench.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. Like, no matter how healthy they can be, it just doesn't feel like outside of Brunson, who's normally their 6 man anyway, nobody scored more than 5 points on their bench. So it's just not good, not a good look. They got to figure out what's going on with Kristaps, man. Like, I don't know. I feel like 11 points is just unacceptable for him in 30 minutes of play.
Well, it'd be fine if he had 11 points and like 10 rebounds and like a few assists added in there, but like he had 11 points and 5 rebounds. Like that's just not going to get the job done. Maybe we're finally getting to the time. I mean, maybe I think a lot of fans were here last year when we talked about this. Porzingis just isn't a second man in any system at this point. Like Porzingis doesn't feel like the Robin to Luca's Batman. He feels like I don't know what, not a very good player. I mean, he's a fine player. It's just he's a 3 option. He's a 4 option. He's not a number 2
Yeah.
option. So we're just gonna have to see if Luka's gonna need support at the end of the day. I think Desert Zombie said it perfectly. Luka still has no supporting pieces. Poor Zinger. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Not gonna do it. Yeah, Porzingis definitely not gonna get the job done. McCurdle said Hawks are deep. Cam Reddish look good. Love me some Cam Reddish. Desert Zombie said we thought the Duke had is for RJ Barrett tonight. I honestly don't know the matchup that RJ Barrett is in, but I'm gonna be interested to look at it. And Bacon said Duke with 2 O's. So it is what it is. I know I get the hate whenever I tell people I'm a Duke fan, but that's perfectly fine by me because I love my Duke boys. All right, let's talk about the last game of the NBA slate, or the last game that we get to talk about, which is the Bucks facing off against the Heat. Jared, I know you didn't want to talk about this game very much, but we have to talk about this game. My number one takeaway when I was watching this is Tyler Hero might just be not as bad as he might have been a little bit of a sophomore slump last year, but like it seems like he's back in action and looks like that great player that we thought he could be.
Yeah, I am. Jury's still out on him for me, and
Okay.
it has to do with just consistency. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that there was a lot of stuff going on. It's tough for a player, especially like a guy coming into his second year, who went to the finals in his rookie season and balled out and had this big name and everything, and there's so much hype coming off of a COVID season. And yeah, I mean, I think that now this season you should give him the ability to hit his stride and find a place in this team. The problem that I see with it is that he's still going to have to figure out what's going to happen when Victor Oladipo comes back. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like he's going to be looked at as this sixth that's this bench piece that's going to have to try to be that sixth man on this team. And can he do it? Yeah, he definitely can. He's shown that he can score and he can be a well-rounded player. I want to see it for more than just one game, and you kind of felt like this was going to happen, especially with given the Bucks' depth issues and just the fact that the game was in Miami. They got swept by the Bucks in the playoffs. Like all this stuff just kind of boiled up and added to what happened last night.
Did you ever see the comment that Tyler Hero had where he said he believes that he's in the same conversation as a Luka Doncic, as a Trae Young, as that elite player they're all earning their contract extensions right now? Like, obviously he's not, at least in my opinion. But like, I want to hear your thoughts on it. At least, do you think he's even close to that type of respect?
Uh, I mean, I give him a shout out because he believes in himself that way.
Yeah,
But that's he's
that's
not on
fair
the
enough.
same level as even Shea. Like he's
Yeah.
not even close to that level. So no, I don't think that you can't make that remark if you're a six-man bench piece. I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing it and he believes in himself and that's great. But no.
Yeah, he said so. This is the direct quote. That was like me like summarizing it, but I wanted to go find it to make sure that it was that direct quote. Miami Heat guard believes he should be mentioned in the same breath as rising superstars Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and Ja Morant, all of whom are on track to become perennial all-stars. He said, "I feel like I'm in the same conversation as those guys, the young guys who coming up in the league who can be all-stars, superstars one day. Luka, Trae, Ja, those guys. I feel like my name should be in that category too." I mean, he certainly I think he's closer than a lot of people expect him to be, or a lot of people would give him credit for being. But I agree with you that he's probably closer. He's below Shea at the very least. So like, if he's below Shea, he's not close to any of these guys.
Well, there's 4 all-stars on that team that are better than him. That's kind of what I
And that's
have
the
to
thing,
say.
right? Like you talk about Luca, you talk about Trey, you talk about Ja. All three of them are the best on their team. If you have four guys that are better than you on your respective team, then you can't be mentioned in the same breath as some of these perennial all stars. It just doesn't work out. Desert Zombie says Hero needs to lay out the bath salts. He's not at that elite level guard. He's lucky to be on that Miami team. I wouldn't go that far to say he's lucky to be on the team, but I think if opportunity was elsewhere, maybe this conversation would change. Like if he was a starting role in a team and did have all those minutes and wasn't on a team that's competing for a finals appearance. But I mean, I guess that
Yeah.
kind of goes to the point. Like, would he be in this conversation if he wasn't in the finals in 2019 when they faced off against the Lakers? Like, would he be at the same point today in referring to like his star level if he wasn't in the finals?
That's a good point, and I think that you're right. If you were to say that, you know, let's say that him and Shea trade places, I think that you can make a really good point that we wouldn't be talking about here on the same respect.
Yeah, I would tend to agree there. Um, yeah, it's good. You got to think you're. Bacon 23 said you got to think you're the best every time you step on the court, and maybe that's what this more goes to, right? Maybe this is less of like we should be clowning him for his take here, and more just he's believing in himself. You can't expect him to not like. You can't expect him to say like, "Oh, I'm worse than these guys." Like you got to expect him to have this type of mindset, and you got to have that type of mindset to be good in the NBA, even to be surface level good in the NBA. I think you need to have that type of mindset. So it is what it is. What do you think about your Bucks? Like, are you getting concerned about the health situation already? I talked about how much this the short break impacts a team, and it already. I don't know if it's bad luck or is already impacting you guys, but like you guys were extremely shorthanded last night. What do you think happened?
Well, I'm happy we're doing it now. I'm happy that all this is happening right now. We expected it to happen. The Brook Lopez thing was definitely something I didn't see coming, but at the same time, I don't know. They're doing it for a reason. Like I think that they're trying to get everybody healthy. They could have brought Drew Holiday back if I know that you weren't, like dialed in yesterday necessarily, but he was probable. Wow,
Oh
struggling
wow.
over here. He was probable yesterday coming in, and they decided to sit him. So, yeah, I think that eventually this team is going to get healthier and show how deep they are. I mean, they have so many guys that are just not playing right now that were acquisitions that came into the team. That you have Semi Ojeleye, you have Rodney Hood, Bobby Portis is on the bench. Brooke Lopez was out last night. Drew's recovering from an injury. I mean, like, I don't know. It's already 5, 6 solid pieces that should come back and be healthy. It's going to take some time. We already knew that this was going to be a little bit of a slower start. I will say I was not prepared to see them blow out the Nets in the first game. So
Yeah.
the way the Bucks play is either they blow teams out or they get blown out themselves, and that's what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know. I'm just a happy camper because Grayson Allen was the second leading scorer on the team. Only Giannis was the guy on top of him. So like, I'm happy to see Grayson Allen fitting in well with the Bucks. That's the only thing I'm going to talk about in a Bucks respect for the whole entire season is, how is Grayson Allen doing? And seems like he's doing just fine. Um, Lucky versus unlucky, like Kendrick Nunn got bounced and picked up by the Lakers. Just going back to the Tyler Hero point. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'm kind of confused about is why did Thanasis not get more run last night? Like, is that would point towards Thanasis being a rotation piece on this team. It kind of surprised me. I was a little bit confused why he didn't get more run than that 18 minutes, especially in a blowout where it seems like prime Thanasis time.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just as confused as you are in terms of that. I think that I'm surprised. Well, he's in right now because he would not be seeing these minutes if Portis and Ojeleye were available, and even Rodney Hood to some respect. So he is the spark that this team needs when things are going bad. It did not work last night for them, but really, honestly, like if you add up the points between the third and fourth quarter, they still got outscored by around 15. And I guess for me, this would have been a game if they would have just showed up in the first quarter, and that's what it takes sometimes. I mean, if you're putting up 40 points in the first quarter, it's pretty hard to come back from, especially if you only score 17. The one thing that does, I mean, I guess, do we? Is like right now, if Brooke Lopez continues to miss, I was talking with a few people yesterday, and I'm not going to say his name because it's very long. And I don't want to be embarrassed because I'll get it right one of these days. I did not bring it up on the podcast, but I thought he was going to be a good play yesterday. Sandro Mamu from Seton Hall. I think this dude's the real deal.
Yeah.
I watched him a lot in college. I know you like to watch the Big East, so yeah, this dude is definitely impressive. Him and Justin Robinson both saw 27 minutes. I know a lot of that had to do with the blowout, but I still feel like the lack of depth with Drew Holiday not there, and basically their entire front court outside of Giannis is gone. They need to rely on some other pieces in order to make things happen. And their draft pick from Greece also played 18 minutes.
Ready for this? Ready? Mamu Kalashvili. That's how you say it.
Yeah.
I've watched him so much when he was with Seton Hall that I knew it off the top of my head. Yeah, I like him. I love him. I thought it was a great pickup by you guys to take him. And yeah, I think he is an animal. I don't know how much playing time he gets once all these guys are healthy, but like,
Oh, he doesn't get anything, yeah. But right now
exactly. But like right now is his show out time. Like this is almost like summer league for him right now. Like this is your
Yeah.
chance to show out, to show that, maybe you're not going to contribute this year, but come next year and come the year after that, maybe that's going to be your chance to contribute. And now's the time to show the coach, like, hey, I can contribute in some respect. Just watch me go. And, he
Sure.
did a little bit of that last night. Ended up getting 25 plus minutes. I didn't see how much he scored. Ended up scoring 12 points, had 4 rebounds, shot 4 for 9. Good night, in my opinion. So good to see him doing some things. I do really like him. So excited to see what else he can do while you guys are still injured. All right. Anything else on the NBA recap front? We have a huge NBA slate today. It's going to be Jared and I breaking everything down for you. I'm going to be the cash game pro. Jared's going to be the GPP pro. Had to do a little bit of a switch up due to some things with Sean today, but regardless, we're still going to get that dub. So anything that you're excited about for today's NBA slate? And if not, we're going to move on to a new little segment on the morning after show.
No, it's a nice 10-game slate. I think there are some awesome games to target. Some really interesting spots that we need to talk about, and that Suns Lakers game is the highlight of the evening. Even though I think it's probably the grossest DFS game on the slate.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun to watch. I cannot wait to watch that. As long as ESPN doesn't have some bum announcers. Like I don't know how you feel about this, but like I really have been paying more attention to who's the commentators on every game, and I swear if it's Jeff Van Gundy, I'm gonna freaking cry because whenever Jeff Van Gundy commentates on a Lakers game, it's just all about how LeBron's a whiner, LeBron's this, LeBron's that. It's the absolutely worst thing for television. So hope they have good commentators. But regardless, like you said, going to be a blast of a slate. We're going to see LaMelo Ball against that Cavs team. That's going to be a lot of fun. Get to
Yeah.
see RJ
Yeah.
Barrett facing off against the Magic, Celtics, Raptors, 76ers, Nets, Rockets versus Thunder. I'm sure that's going to be a DFS gem, and I can't wait to talk about it this afternoon with you when we get to the NBA podcast. But for right now, we're going to move on to a new little segment that is going to be implemented every single Friday. You don't know about this, but I know about this. It's a little segment we're going to call Not Technical Foul. It's supposed to be called Josh's Corner, but technical foul. Anything last night that happened. Man, I have not been on my game for topics. It's because I didn't see it. I usually see it the night before, and I get a little bit of stuff in my head for it, but I saw it just this morning when it got posted, and so it's thrown me off a little bit. So on technical foul, anything that you saw last night that deserves a tech?
Yeah, I mean, just I don't know. Three game NBA slate. Two of the games get blown out. I said this on the podcast, and we also prefaced it by saying we don't 100% know this in fact, so we can't necessarily go off of it. But all the games last night, Josh, were within 5 points of totals, and so they were between 223 and 228, and all of the spreads were within 3 points. And two of the games blew out, and one of them went the distance. So honestly, you had to have Miami players, and you had to stack the last game, and that's how you won.
Yep,
So
that is how you
weird
won.
slate.
And definitely a weird slate. I wish I played Bam, man. I thought about it and then I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Instead I'll play Giannis, who ended up absolutely shitting the bed for me. So it's whatever, we move on to another day, and I'm not worried about taking an L on a 3-game slate. All right, let's talk about Josh's Corner. This is gonna be the part of the Friday show where we talk about UFC, we talk about college football, and this is how we end off the show. So first, let's talk about college football, because I feel like that's the sport where you're going to be able to keep up with me the most out of the two of them. This is an interesting week because it feels like the first week in a really long time where we don't have two ranked teams playing against each other. It's all ranked teams playing against unranked teams. But I will say that the matchups are really interesting. Like, you have good matchups up and down this slate. One, for example, would be Wake Forest facing off against Army, Purdue facing off against Wisconsin, Oklahoma State and Iowa State, Oregon and UCLA, which I think is really good, Ole Miss and LSU, another really good one. Is this LSU game going to keep competing for their head coach? We'll just have to see. Clemson versus Pittsburgh, another good matchup. Tennessee versus Alabama. I don't know how good of a matchup this is, but I do know Hendon Hooker has been an absolute animal this season, so going to be interesting to see if he can continue to be an animal. You have kind of gets off
Did you
after
say?
there.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Did you say Kansas State, Texas Tech?
I did not say Kansas State, Texas Tech. That's another good one that I think you can consider. Like, just a lot of good games, in my opinion, when it comes down to it. It doesn't feel like a week where there isn't two unranked teams playing against each other, or two ranked teams playing against each other, because I like a lot of these matchups, and I think that things are going to be a lot closer than Vegas expects.
Yep. Speaking of that, I've been looking at BetOnline's odds just briefly. Tonight, there's actually really good games, so I don't want to skip that. I think that you can tune in and watch Memphis UCF and expect 70-plus points, because that should be a fireworks show.
Yep.
Now, on Saturday, there's a couple really good spots. Like, I know that, some of these matchups are definitely lopsided. Like, Penn State should smash Illinois, and same thing with Cincinnati over Navy. But I do think, like you said, Wake Forest Army is a good matchup. I think that the Kansas State Texas Tech game is a good matchup. One game we did, I don't know if you touched on, I think you did, the Pittsburgh Clemson. Did you say that?
Yes, I did say that.
Yep. That's actually a 3-point spread towards Pittsburgh, for what
Yeah.
it's worth.
And the UCLA game, I don't know if BetOnline has these odds, but like what I'm seeing
they
in
do.
front of me is that UCLA is the favored team right now. So like
They are.
they're at home. That's going to be a really, really interesting game to see if Oregon can live up to the hype of being the number 10 team in the nation.
Yep.
Just a lot of great games, man. Like, I'm excited. This seems like it's going to be a really solid slate.
Yep, that'll be a good one. UCLA right now on BetOnline's -1, and then the one right below it is Oklahoma State taking on Iowa State. Oklahoma State technically number 8 in the country. They are 7-point dogs on the road.
Wow. Yeah. So lots of interesting odds, lots of interesting games. I think it'll be a really fun one. Make sure to tune in, not tune in, but make sure keep an eye out for college football content, which will be posted either early tomorrow morning or really late tonight. So we'll just have to see in that respect. UFC is a juicy one this week. Yeah, Paulo Costa facing off against Marvin Vettori. You have so many things to focus on. I don't expect you to know what I'm going to be talking about here, but did you hear the news about Paulo Costa and the Marvin Vettori matchup?
No idea, so
All
hit me
right,
with
so
it.
so here we go. All right, so Paulo Costa just lost last year to Israel Adesanya, and
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a little bit closer. Ended up not being close at all. Adesanya absolutely bullied him, and so Paulo Costa came out after the fight saying that, oh, I was drinking wine the night before. That's the reason that I
Oh,
ended up losing. Yeah, exactly. Right. That was kind of the reaction of the whole MMA community. Like, come on, man, really? Like that's what you're gonna say. And then this week has been really interesting leading up to the fight. So this fight was supposed to be at 185 at the middleweight division, and then Paulo Costa says, "No, I'm not fighting at 185. Why would I do that?" He said, "I want to move it up to a catch weight of 195 now," and so 10 more pounds. Marvin Vettori manager came out and say, "We think he's trying to dodge us. We're thinking that he moved it to a catch weight to try to not fight us, and Marvin wants to fight. So we're going to take the catch weight of 195." And then more rumors coming out now that Paulo Costa might be wanting to move it to 198 instead of 195. And so Jacuz says actually Costa tried to get it to 205. The point being is that Costa has a very good likelihood of coming in overweight today. I'm super interested to see what happens at weigh-ins today, because Paulo Costa, an absolute physical specimen at 185. Like I have no clue how he gets down to the weight. I'm sure by fight time on Saturday, he tends to blow up to like 205, 215, something around that weight cut.
Sure.
He's a humongous human being. But like now the rumor is that Costa's going to go to light heavyweight after this fight. And I was actually talking with our AP for the MMA show about this, saying that like I would expect Costa to kind of struggle at light heavyweight just because he doesn't have that imposing size anymore that he had at middleweight. But with how bad the light heavyweight division is, he'll probably be just fine. He'll actually probably be a contender at the light heavyweight division. So I don't know. The back and forth by Costa throws me off a little bit. I don't know how Marvin's going to come into this fight. I bet he comes in under 195, and that's a little bit concerning for me just because he doesn't have that wrestling advantage that he usually has. But like, I know you don't know like the disadvantage and advantage of these guys, but like, what do you think about the whole like weight stuff going back and forth for Costa?
Well, I think it's whenever somebody who's not used to doing it, or not used to doing it in that regard. Like, I don't know. I've seen comments from multiple people that know way more than I do about all of this, say that the same things have to change in terms of like the extremities of the weight cut, and that's that. I guess maybe you can speak more to that, but at what time, or like what's it going to take for the UFC to change their policy on some of that stuff?
The only thing that can happen that'll make the UFC change their policies on weight cuts is if they implement more divisions. And this is something that's been talked about
Okay.
for years now. But it's already that like 10 pounds in between each division is way too much weight. Like that's just entirely too much weight. The fact that like you can be a fighter that's at, let's say 180, or no, 180 is not, let's say 195. I think that's the perfect example. Either you bulk up and get the 205, and then you're kind of a small fighter because you need to be over 205 to fight at the light heavyweight division, or you're in Costa's case where like he's just too big for middleweight right now, but like there's a 20-pound difference between middleweight and light heavyweight. Just like there's a 15-pound difference between middleweight and welterweight. Like there's just too big of a gap right now in between divisions. So what needs to happen is exactly what's happening in boxing. You need to have weight divisions in between the weight divisions that they currently have. You honestly should have one for every 5 pounds, but they just don't have enough fighters on the roster. Dana White doesn't have enough cash to pay out everyone. And we already know how stingy he is. He doesn't have enough cash to pay out that many athletes. So that's why you see such drastic weight cuts from these guys, is because there's such big gaps in between each weight division that if there wasn't such big gaps between each weight division, you wouldn't nearly see this much talk about it. But because of that, you see fighters putting themselves in dangers. Weight cuts are terrible, man. Like I've personally never gone through one. I've never had to go through one, but like I've heard stories about it. It's like absolutely horrendous what fighters have to go through for weight cuts. Some fighters even say that like cutting weight is the hardest part of the weekend. The fight isn't even that difficult when it comes to how hard it is to cut weight like they do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a few things, and I've seen like your analysis on trying to attack people that like if you can notice it on the Friday when they weigh in,
Yeah,
and
you can.
all the pregame stuff. And I know that they gain like 10 to 15 pounds, if not more, after that, just due to the water and everything else. But yeah, it's concerning for sure. That's the first part. The second is like some of these fighters just want to prove themselves so much and get paid and everything else that they don't care what it takes. They're just going to do it. And maybe they showboat. Well, I wouldn't say showboat's not the right word. Proving to everyone that they can do something that people don't think they can do is something that, I respect. But at the same time, it comes to a point where like, what's it going to take? Somebody like passes out on the weight scale in order for this thing to change? Or
It's
somebody
happened.
dies, goes to the hospital?
The thing is like it's happened, right? We've seen fighters pass out on the weight scale. We've seen like really scary stuff like that happen, and it's never going to change. Unless Dana ends up implementing more weight divisions, at least between 170 and 185, and between 180 and 205, and honestly 205 and 265. There should be something there as well. There should be a super light heavyweight of 225, I think is what it is. Regardless, you need more divisions, or else this will never stop. Like it won't ever stop. There's a reason that you don't see as much of this weight cutting drama in between bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight. It's because they're all separated by 10 pounds. Like if it was just separated by 10 pounds, it'd be a completely different scenario, but it's not. Well, actually, it's still separated by 15 pounds. I think the biggest problem you see is between middleweight and light heavyweight, because it's 20 pounds of a difference. It's just absolutely insane to see such a big difference. There just should be more divisions, and that's what it's going to come down to. Until you see that change, nothing else is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you also have to consider like what is the majority of the fighting population's demographic, right? Like, what are they? What's I think that most of the people fall in that category. I do think that I knew this, so I pride myself for actually knowing that there's really tough. There's a huge gap between like the heavyweight and the light heavyweight. So I did know that. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. Maybe it's just the lack of fighters. Is that why? Is it just not enough?
Kinda, yes. I think that it's kind of the lack of fighters. It's a whole bunch of things. It's just politics too. Like they don't want to make too many divisions in between, because you already have a problem with filling out a heavyweight roster at this point. Like they're already experiencing a lot of trouble with that. They're experiencing some troubles with light heavyweight too. Like light heavyweight is a really difficult roster for them to fill out right now. Light heavyweight used to be the best division in the UFC. Now you could very well make the case that it's the worst division in the UFC. So like it's just hard to find guys in that range that want to fight. Like you said, all these athletic guys, like they're usually falling into lightweight, welterweight, I would say featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, and some middleweights. But like it's just like I said, you're gonna need some more divisions if you want to see any of this figured out or any of this fixed. Before we get off the show, I just want to bring up this one last MMA topic because John brought it up in the chat. He said, "Hey Josh, what's your take on the Aspen Ladd coaching controversy? Did you see what happened with this?"
I was at the Badger game, so I did not.
Yes, that's right. You were at the Badger game last week. So main event, right? Aspen Ladd has this opportunity to place herself in a good position at the featherweight women's division, and she just doesn't show up really. Like Norma Dumont absolutely dominated in that fight. Aspen Ladd's very much a wrestler, so like she was trying to get in on the hips and trying to clinch, and she just couldn't get inside on Norma Dumont without taking too much damage. And I can't remember what round it was in between, but Aspen Ladd's coach was like, you got to do better. Like just yelling at her. Like,
Mm.
and everyone in the arena could tell it because they're in the apex. So like it's super small. There's not a lot of fans, but everyone
Yep.
could see her getting absolutely yelled at. And everyone was like, oh, this is abuse. Like this isn't right.
Oh boy.
Aspen Land's coach should be fired. It's just like he was going in, but on the same respect, I want to be very careful with my words because again, this is very similar to the Ben Simmons talk, to where I could get like there's a potential of getting canceled and everything, but like I just think it's exactly how a male fighter would be treated in the octagon. So like I don't think it's that much of an issue. I think more of the issue is her coach shouldn't be yelling at her. Her coach should be yelling at her like that. Some fighters just need to get yelled at to waken themselves up. But maybe it's the fact that he should have been telling her what to do more. Like the advice that he was giving her wasn't sound. Like if you're going to yell at your fighter like that, then you need to have a game plan. Like you can't yell at your fighter and not know how to beat the opposing fighter. If you're going to yell at your fighter, you need to tell her, okay, this is what you need to do or else we're going to lose this fight. Like it was a bad look on both fronts in
Sure.
my opinion. You shouldn't need to get yelled at like that to waken up in a fight, and the coach should have had more advice and less yelling in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess I mean like obviously the coach probably knows how to rile up his fighter, I would assume, since they know themselves for so long. On the other side of that, it's not a good look for, especially in that where I'm sure it's a lot quieter, or even like as quiet as it can get. In that respect too, we have been opened up to this new world of the Apex and everything in Vegas, not having too many fans at it, so you can hear literally everything. So that's not a good look for sure. So I'm sure that's why, actually, probably the only reason why that this is even being brought up in the first place
Yep.
is that as a coach, at least in my respect, everybody's different. So I mean, everybody responds to different things as well. But if it was me, I would want to hear, you can yell at me and you can tell me what to do, but just like actually sort of like throw in some encouragement in that regard too.
Or just
It's
like
not
throwing a game plan. Like that's my thing. Like
Yeah.
he's just yelling at her to wake up and like actually be in the fight. But like you need to
Yeah.
give me something to do. Like if I don't have anything to do and another fighter's just clearly outclassing me, like it is what it is, man. Like you
Right.
can't win them all. The Jakku said the coach is also her boyfriend. I don't think that really comes into play in my opinion. I mean, it probably does in the media's eyes, but like you've seen that plenty where you have relationships as coaching and fighter relationships as well. And usually like that part of their relationship doesn't tend to leak into the coaching and fighter relationship as well. So like I throw that to the side. I don't think you need to consider that. I think this is just a coach trying to fire up his fighter and doing it completely wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't see it, so I don't have enough comments to give. But
sure.
if I was me, that was. I think this obviously, if it was anywhere else outside of Vegas, I don't think we'd hear about it.
Yeah, completely agree. You don't hear about this anywhere else outside of Vegas. All right, let's get out of here. Let's give our closing thoughts and closing remarks. Anything that you have to say before we get out of here and we get ready for the NFL show?
No, just that today is Shot to the Moon launch day, so we're taking over. Also, if you guys want, I mean, we'll be back here in an hour, but if you want to switch back and forth between that stream and this stream, then feel free and go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Go check them out. They're going to be doing a lot of fun things today. I know they have a lot of guests on. I know they have a lot of giveaways going on. So it is going to be a good time, without a doubt. If you guys have any questions for us, feel free to throw them in the Good Skill chat room. Feel free to DM us. I know it's a little bit of a confusing day when Sean isn't around, but we are going to take care of things, and we're going to pick up the dub tonight at NBA. So as always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.